School. Welcome to week 2 of our new series this month called Canceled. Last week, I said we should cancel candy corn and people who like candy corn. That did not work out so well. This Sunday night, I walk into church for life groups and I see one of our very own 9th grade girls group leaders, Melissa, with a bag of candy corn in her hand. Melissa, what are you doing? I don't love your candy choices, Melissa, but you are my sister in Christ, and I do love you. Hey, we're continuing in this series, y'all, and we're looking at stories of Jesus where we see that instead of cancel culture, he calls us to a culture of love and compassion. And social media can be a place, like we talked about last week, of anger and hurt because of cancel culture. A lot of that happens online, but it also happens offline relationships as well. But social media can also be fun and wholesome and helpful and downright entertaining, especially when grandparents are involved. Let's take a look at a few posts that are pretty funny when grandparents get on social media. So yeah, it can be funny when grandparents get involved with social media. And I'm sure many of you are happy to help your family and older generation in your family with their technological questions, at least the first 50 of them or so. But I can understand how you might get frustrated or impatient after that. Every day we have opportunities to help people who are in need, whether it's a small thing like helping an older person use the internet or a younger kid tie their shoe, or a bigger thing like telling your friend like, hey, you got some food stuck in your teeth, bro. Depending on the person in need, depending on the need they have, depending on the mood that we're in or how busy we are, maybe we help them or maybe we don't. You see, everyone is helpful and everyone is generous sometimes. But what about the times we'd rather not? What about the times we'd rather not be helpful when we're busy or we're annoyed or we're tired or sure that someone else will help them? You see, every day we're surrounded by people who need help with things that are a lot more serious than figuring out how to post a picture on Facebook. Let's take a look at this video. It was an interesting experiment done to see how people responded to a little 6-year-old girl. Would you help this little 6-year-old girl?
Экси.
А кахлус хоро? Ты потерялась?
So how'd you feel watching that video? Maybe it reminded you of a time when you failed to help someone who was in need. I know I have plenty of those times. And maybe it reminded you of a time when you were in need, but no one was there for you. Maybe both. The reality is we're in need at our most vulnerable point, but we don't always respond with compassion or care or concern. If you're like me, when I see great need in other people's lives, sometimes I respond with discomfort or suspicion or disgust or impatience at their need. Sometimes we'll be the ones who are in need, and sometimes we'll be the ones who are able to offer help to those who are in need. But wouldn't you love to live in a world where instead of canceling those who were in need, we reached out to those with love and compassion? I believe in a world like that. I believe in a kingdom like that because I believe in the King, King Jesus, our Creator, God of the universe, who showed us love in our most vulnerable moment, love when we were in need. He didn't stay far off. Instead, he came toward us and helped us in our weakness. Jesus challenges us to go and to bring that kingdom to earth, to live in his way. Instead of cancel culture, building a culture of love and compassion. So let's open up our Bibles to learn the truth of Jesus. Let's open up our lives to share the love of Jesus. We're going to look at a few of his stories in his life in the Gospels, and we're going to learn his way, and we're going to live his love and truth out in the world. Come on, y'all. Let's not give in to the pattern of this world of cancel culture. Let's instead learn how to love those who are in need. Let's open our Bibles. So we'll be in Mark chapter 10, verses 46 to 52. And you'll see here that Jesus' days were often interrupted by people's cries for help, like the man in this story, a blind man named Bartimaeus, who cried out to Jesus. Let's read it. And they came to Jericho. And as he was leaving Jericho with his disciples in a great crowd, Bartimaeus, a blind beggar, the son of Timaeus, was sitting by the roadside. And when he heard that it was Jesus of Nazareth, he began to cry out and say, "Jesus, son of David, have mercy on me." And many rebuked him, telling him to be silent. But he cried out all the more, "Son of David, have mercy on me." And Jesus stopped and said, "Call him." And they called the blind man, saying to him, "Take heart, get up, he's calling you." And throwing off his cloak, he sprang up and came to Jesus. And Jesus said to him, "What do you want me to do for you?" And the blind man said to him, "Rabbi, let me recover my sight." And Jesus said to him, "Go your way. Your faith has made you well." And immediately he recovered his sight and followed him on the way. Does this remind you of a moment in need in your life? Like Bartimaeus crying out for help, you hear somebody else needs help, but they're told to be quiet. The crowds couldn't be bothered by Bartimaeus because he wasn't worthy as a beggar for their time, attention, or help. But to Jesus, Bartimaeus was worthy of his time. To Jesus, we see that Bartimaeus was worthy of his attention. To Jesus, Bartimaeus was worthy of his help. Who's a Bartimaeus in your life? Who's a Bartimaeus in cancel culture that needs help? A person in need in your world. Let's look at another passage together. So this next story is in Luke chapter 8, verses 40 to 48, where Jesus is actually on his way to save the life of a dying girl, and he was interrupted by someone else who was in need. Let's read it, verse 40. Now when Jesus returned, the crowd welcomed him, for they were all waiting for him. And there came a man named Jairus, who was a ruler of the synagogue. And falling at Jesus' feet, he implored him to come to his house, for he had an only daughter about 12 years of age, and she was dying. As Jesus went, the people pressed around him, and there was a woman who had had a discharge of blood for 12 years. And though she had spent all her living on physicians, she could not be healed by anyone. She came up behind him and touched the fringe of his garment, and immediately her discharge of blood ceased. And Jesus said, "Who was it that touched me?" When all denied it, Peter said, "Master, the crowds surrounded you and are pressing in on you." But Jesus said, "Someone touched me, for I perceive the power has gone out from me." And when the woman saw that she was not hidden, she came trembling and falling down before him in the presence of all the people. She declared why she touched him and how she had been immediately healed. And he said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace." You see, because of her gender and because of her illness, this woman would have been someone seen as not worthy of Jesus' time, attention, or help. She likely would have felt like speaking to Jesus would have been out of the question, which is why she just tries to reach out and touch his robe. But Jesus shows us in this story when he stops and he realizes that power had gone out, healing power for this woman. And around the great crowd, he says, "Who touched me?" The crowds spread, and Jesus sees her as she comes forth in fear and trembling and says, You healed me." And Jesus lovingly calls her daughter. He tells her to go in peace. This woman was worthy of Jesus' time, attention, and help. He loved this woman in need instead of canceling her. Let's look at one more passage together. So in this next passage, we'll be in a different gospel. We've been in Mark, Luke, and now we'll flip to Matthew chapter 25, verse 31 to 46. But Jesus didn't just show us how to love people in need. He actually taught on it and spoke about it when he was explaining something in this passage important about God and important about the kingdom of God, and he did so with this parable. In the parable, he'll talk about goats and sheep. Now, I don't know much about goats or sheep, but I have learned this little tidbit this week that goats are pretty independent and sheep generally like to travel in herds. So let's read this together. Matthew 25, verse 31. When the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, then he will sit on his glorious throne. Before him will be gathered all the nations, and he will separate people one from another as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. And he will place the sheep on his right, but the goats on his left. Then the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me." Then the righteous will answer him, saying, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you drink? And when did we see you a stranger and welcome you, or naked and clothe you? And when did we see you sick or in prison and visit you?" And the king will answer them, "Truly, I say to you, as you did it one to the least of these, my brothers, you did it to me." Then he will say to those on his left, "Depart from me, you cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me no food. I was thirsty, and you gave me no drink. I was a stranger, and you did not welcome me, naked, and you did not clothe me, sick and in prison, and you did not visit me." Then they also will answer, "Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty or a stranger or naked or sick or in prison and did not minister to you?" Then he will answer them, saying, "Truly, I say to you, as you did not do it to one of the least of these, you did not do it to me." And these will go away into eternal punishment, but the righteous into eternal life. So how does Jesus judge sheep and goats according to this passage? Well, in this passage, we see that he judges them according to how they treated people, specifically people who were in need. You see, the goats, the unrighteous ones, were the ones when they heard of someone in need, ran away, didn't help because they were likely focused just on themselves. But the righteous ones, the sheep in this passage, when they heard of someone in need, they leaned into the need. They loved those who were in need. And according to Jesus, the sheep in this passage were the kind of people who, when they heard someone was in need, they keep their ears open and their eyes open to those needs, and they ask, "How can I help?" Who knew we could learn so much from farm animals in a story of Jesus? But seriously, through his examples and through his teachings, Jesus consistently cared for people that we all too often cancel, forget, ignore, disrespect because of their needs. And now he challenges you and he challenges me to do what he did. If we are followers of Jesus, he has called us to love those who are in need. But how do we actually love those who are in need? Well, here's 4 things on how to meet needs and how not to. Number 1 is this: it's not only about our actions, it's about our heart. You see, the sheep in this passage, they didn't even know that anyone noticed that they were loving and helping those who are in need. They're like, "When did you see us? When were you thirsty and we gave you a drink? We didn't even know that you were paying attention." Jesus not only cares about what we do, he cares about our hearts and our motivation in the process. Number 2 is this: it's not only about loving others, it's about loving God. You see, Jesus challenges us to love others well, and that is what he's called us to do and how we should live. But he's letting us in on a secret. When we love others well, this is actually an expression of love and worship to God. Every time we care for someone who is in need, it's a gift of love and an act of worship to God. Number 3, it's not about what we have, it's about what we can give. You see, in this passage, Jesus wasn't talking about wealthy or important people who had all the resources to help those who were in need. No, Jesus was talking about everyday, ordinary people like you and me who just used their time, their talent, their treasure, their commitment, their skills, whatever they had to give, even just the simple act of friendship. Jesus says that we can use those things for God's kingdom and God's purposes. So it's not about what you have, it's about what you can give to others. And number 4, it's not about them, it's about us. You see, when we talk about loving and helping others who are in need, we can all too easily start to think of ourselves as the ones who are more valuable or above those people who need help. But Jesus didn't treat people like this. You know, the blind man and the woman, Jesus not only gave them compassion, he gave them respect as people. And Jesus has called us to do the same. It's not about them, it's about us. We love those who are in need because they are our fellow image bearer. They are a person made in the image of God who matters intimately, beautifully, powerfully to God. Jesus died for that person, just like he died for you. We are equally sinners. We are equally loved. We are equally valued and have dignity before God as image bearers. And we'll close with this video. I love this act of high schoolers who are loving someone who is in need. They didn't cancel this kid. They leaned forward into this kid's life and showed compassion and love. Let's watch this clip.
These two students are showing how kindness can go a very long way.
The best day of my entire life was basically.
That is Michael Todd, a freshman at MLK Prep in Memphis, Tennessee. The two seen here, Christopher Graham and Antoine Garrett, made Todd's day.
Michael was getting made fun of for 3 straight weeks at his new school.
I've been bullied my entire life.
He would wear the same clothes every day, and students at MLK Prep would mock him for it.
That's right, bullied for wearing the same clothes to school each day. Seen in this video, Graham and Garrett gave him a quantitative gift: shoes, shirts, and much more. I wasn't smiling or anything, and I was like, I think this is going to make you smile. We're in the same third period, and I apologize for laughing at you, and I want to give you something to make it up, Graham said.
Think about what these guys gave up to love this kid who was in need, who was in a vulnerable position and being bullied. They not only gave up money and materials, they likely sacrificed their reputation and popularity at that school because they, instead of canceling someone and ignoring someone who was in need, they loved them. In Jesus' time, people were often canceled by society instead of helped. They were left to fend for themselves, just ignored. And that still happens. It's the same sin problem today. If you want to love like Jesus, and I hope that you do, don't be conformed to the cancel culture pattern of this world. Instead, be transformed and love those who are in need. And while you do it like you're doing it for Jesus himself.